apartment. So I think we've officially moved in now.
Nice.
Yeah.
I want to see the background of your new place.
All right, looks like we're streaming, Seamus. Are we good to go?
Yes.
We are.
Very good. So I want to say welcome to everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight on a snowy Thursday and joining IND. We're very pleased to see so many folks. I think we'll continue to get people joining over the next few minutes, but we can get started here. Tonight, we're going to do a little bit of club business first. We've got the elections for our officers and for our e-board. We're going to give a couple of quick updates on some things that are going on, and then we'll turn to the sort of main event for tonight, which is our candidates for office. But we'll start off, unfortunately, I'll start off with a sad note about our friend Peter Weiss. Peter was an executive board member, a friend of many folks here. He'd been a longtime member of IND for years and years. Joan, do you know when he started? Decades ago, right? Yeah, decades ago. He's been involved for quite a while, fighting corruption, helping to elect judges and candidates, and was just he was a great guy, super knowledgeable, very friendly, and I love to listen to his stories. So unfortunately, he passed away last week, and we're very sorry. We'll miss him a great deal. Wanted to mention a couple of things upcoming for the club. Some of our candidates who we have endorsed have started campaigning, phone banking, and getting ready to go out and collect signatures for petitions. Keep an eye on your email and on the IND Facebook page and on the IND website. We've started to advertise some of that. I know Lincoln Wrestler, our candidate for the 33rd, has already did a phone bank. Thanks to folks who showed up. I did that on Saturday or Sunday. We had a good number of IND folks there. And I know Scott Stringer, our endorsed candidate for mayor, and others are beginning to have some of that. So I know it feels like we just finished with the Georgia runoff and all the phone banking we did with that, but take a quick breather and then we'll dive right back in, I suppose. I wanted to see Joanne Simon wanted to give a quick update. Joanne, are you on? I don't see her. Maybe we can defer her until later on. Joan, you had a quick update you wanted to give about petitioning.
Okay, thank you. I'm on you. I'm not muted now.
No, you're good. We can hear you.
Yes, I know. We're first day of petitioning for us to give out petitioning will be Monday, March the 1st. We're going to be only giving out petitions that day. Nobody will be able to circulate them, but we'll be at Congregation Mount Sinai, which is right around the corner from where we had done petitioning last year. We'll use the Clark Street entrance between Henry and Cadman Plaza West. I'm going to give the times and the days for the first week, but Alyssa's going to post it so that everybody, you don't have to copy it down. But we're going to provide you with clipboards and folders and hand sanitizers, and for the first time, an IND pen. Everybody who petitions is going to get a pen so that you can give it to the person who signs it. We don't have to worry about wiping the pen down with anything. And I haven't seen them, but I think Steve saw them. If
Alyssa's showing them, sorry to cut you off. Alyssa's showing it in the right now. Yeah.
Oh, and we didn't even prearrange that, right, Alyssa? That's really good. But they have, I think, the IND logo and the website, correct?
Yeah.
Good, thanks. Somebody's agreeing with that. Thank you. I'm not looking at it. So you'll get that also with the clipboard, a petition. You'll be asked to wear a mask, please, when you enter the facility, and we'll socially distance. So Monday, the first day to give out petitions, we'll be there from 4 to 8. On Tuesday, the 2nd, Wednesday, the 3rd, and Thursday, the 4th, our hours will be 5 to 8. And that's how we'll arrange the first week. And then we'll get back to you the second week. We only have 3 sets of petitions, not as complicated as last year. Recently,
especially how you.
One petition will have all our endorsed candidates with Lincoln Wrestler for that district, and the other one will have all the same endorsed candidates, but we'll have Bridget with who's our endorsed candidate. And I believe we'll also have Joanne Simon just for Borough President singles. That's only 3 petitions, no county committee, much easier. You'll come in and pick up your own stuff. We're not going to touch it. And it's not going to be easy, but I'm counting on everybody who's listening tonight to either come in one of those nights or get in touch with us and let us know when you're available. And it should be a nice, smooth, easy operation. With good weather, hopefully we can proceed. Thank you.
Steve, it looks like had a question perhaps for you, Joan. Steve, you're muted, by the way.
Just to remind that we're going to need volunteers to man the synagogue for 4 nights. Not that many people, but if people would volunteer, that would be great. I mean, I'm certainly going to do it. I know Joan's going to be there probably the whole time because she's our leader. And so please let us know so we can have people man it to give out the petitions and then afterwards to collect them.
Yeah,
Yep.
my only correction is we call it staffing. We don't call it
Okay.
manning. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Well done, Joan. Well done. I'll be there as well. And to just to echo Joan's point, we are going to need help from folks. And we know obviously this is a different year. If people are uncomfortable about being out, some of the folks who gather quite a bunch of petitions for us in previous years maybe are on the more vulnerable end of the spectrum. We don't want to ask people to do what they can't do or what they're not comfortable doing. But that does mean that if you are comfortable and you're able to do it, we'd really like your help. The numbers are reduced this year by the governor's executive order, but we want to make sure all of our candidates get plenty of signatures and have no trouble at all getting on the ballot. We were able to do this last year, even with the signature gathering was cut off prematurely. We had to sort of scramble. We really pulled together. It was a nice effort. Now we've got even a little more time to plan this, and so we're hoping to get a great effort out of folks and make sure we put together a good petitioning period for our endorsed candidates. So thanks very much, Joan. Anybody other questions on petitioning? Very good. So now we'll turn to the e-board election and election of officers. This is a continuation of our last meeting where we nominated candidates for IND offices. We nominated people for IND e-board. As a reminder, you cannot be nominated tonight for officers. We had to do that last meeting, and we've got one for every office, and we have no contested offices. So those are going to be less dramatic maybe than usual, but I'm glad we've got somebody for every office. And we've still got room for a few more e-board members if people are interested in running. So I'll read those in a second, and we'll see if there's anybody else that wants to add. I'll just add that tonight is my last night as president. I've done it for
development, and they were saying how wonderful Rad is, right? And how wonderful.
There you go. And I just want to say thanks very much to everybody in the group, both the members, the guests, the candidates. I've had a really excellent time as president of this club. It's been really gratifying for me. We have worked to nominate or to elect some judges and to elect candidates to local office. We had a district leader race that was contested and hard fought, and we won. And mostly we pulled together through some really difficult years here. All the work we did in resisting the Trump administration.
Not able to be on.
Seamus, can we just keep muting folks? Thank you. But I just want to say thank you because I had so much help from so many people, the e-board, from the leadership, from Joan, from Josh Scaler, Jesse Pierce, Joanne Simon, and just far too many other people to name. But I feel really confident in the group of people that we're turning things over to tonight. So I'm very excited about it. But I just want to say thank you very much for all the support and the kindness that I've gotten from everybody over the last 2 years. So I will read now the candidates for office and then the candidates for e-board. So tonight, candidate for president, Tyler Rocky. The only candidate running. For first vice president, Danielle Zuckerman. For second vice president, Hal Friedman. For treasurer, Jesse Capel. For corresponding secretary, Alyssa Meyer. For recording secretary, Lynn Hill. These are uncontested, and so I say that we elect them by acclamation unless there's any objection. Seeing none.
Second.
Very good. I'll declare those the incoming slate of officers for IND. So congratulations, everybody. I'll pause for muted applause. Very good. And now here's a list of the people who were nominated for executive board last meeting. I'll read through this list of folks. And as I mentioned, there's a couple of more spots open if anyone is interested. So think about whether you might want to join the e-board. Here's who's been nominated so far. Steve Bronstein, Seamus Campbell, Joe Coletti, Vicky Eastis, Karen Johnson, Art Levy, Joan Millman, Greg Monte, Helen Perlstein, Melinda Rasco, Jason Reichel, Thomas Rosborough, Julia Omela Sachs, Nancy Shu, and Steve Wagner. Is there anybody else who wants to nominate anybody for the executive board tonight? And I'll look for hands. Tyler, did you have somebody?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's here tonight, but I'd like to nominate Mike Rasiopo.
Oh, very good. Mike, are you here? Well, why don't we put him down on the list? And if he,
I have a question. Is he able to do that considering his position?
I
Did you
don't know.
speak to him, Tyler, first?
Yeah, I've been working on him. I think I texted him just now saying, you know, he can of course decline if he's unable to do it, but I figured I would just throw it out if just in case he's able to.
We've actually recommended him in the past and he couldn't do it because of his position as the district manager of CB6.
That's fair. And of course, if he's unable to do it, he can decline, no problem.
Okay. Any other nominations for executive board, IND executive board?
Jason?
Yes, Helen, how are you?
Hi, good. I just want everyone to know that you're not going anyplace. You will be automatically on the executive board. So we're going to have you around for a while, I hope.
That is absolutely correct. And I promised Tyler I would try and help and pitch in wherever I could be useful. And I agree. I'm not going anywhere at all. Thank you very much for that, Helen, though. Any other nominations or thoughts on e-board? Well, given that we do not have any contested e-board races, I would motion that we accept all of the members to be the 2021 IND e-board.
I'll second that.
Fantastic. Anybody opposed? Great. So we now have a new set of officers and a new set of e-board members. Thank you, guys. Thank you all. I will, I think when Tyler and I were going back and forth on the scheduling, the run of show for this tonight, he wrote mostly peaceful transition of power at this spot. So we'll see what he has in mind for that. But Tyler, Rocky, I'll let you take it away. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much, Jason. And thanks everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. I guess just most of you folks already know me just through membership with this group. But I'm relatively new to IND, especially compared to some of the folks that have been here since its inception, I believe. So I think I probably have a whole lot to learn from everyone on this Zoom call. I would just recommend, I'm going to type my email into the chat right now, although you've been bombarded with it over the last several weeks, because I was the guy to email if you had any treasurer questions. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or comments on my MC work tonight. But I suppose right off the bat, I think the first thing I want to do is make sure we can check in with any updates from any elected officials. I don't know if Joanne arrived yet, but if not, if Josh Scaller or Jesse Pierce are on and want to give us any updates on new developments, and then we'll move into the candidate presentations.
I'll just say really quickly, if Jason's received a lot of kindness, it's because he puts a lot of kindness out into the universe, is my experience. So thank you so much to Jason and his leadership. Excited for Tyler and this new slate of officers and the e-board. And I don't have too much else to say. I'm honestly here to hear the judges speak. So happy to move along to that portion of our programming tonight. Thank you so much, Tyler.
Okay, Susanna, did you have your hand up?
Hi, yes, I'll be very brief. So, Assemblymember Simon will be here a little bit late, so she'll, maybe there's a time for her to make comments later. And I just want to say, usually this is the time of year where we do so many pitches on petitioning, and Jason ropes me into talking about it. So I want to just say thank you so much to him for all of his work. He was very welcoming when I came to IND, and he did wrangle me into many hours of petitioning at night, and look forward to doing the same this year. And we're so excited to have you, Tyler.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye out for Joanne, maybe toward the end. I think if the basic flow, I think tonight is going to be, we'll start with candidate presentations of roughly 4 minutes. I think Danielle has a 1 minute left sign, and she's going to be timing us to try to keep the introductory presentations to about 4 minutes, and then we'll have time for a couple questions for each candidate from the audience, and we'll just proceed from there. Once all of those presentations are done, we're going to try as efficiently as possible to move everybody who is a eligible voting member into kind of a separate Zoom room where those discussions will take place, and people can kind of give and take their opinion about who we ought to endorse. And then we'll try to publish our endorsements as quickly as possible tonight. And I think, yeah, the raised hand function is pretty good on here. It like bumps you up into the upper left corner so I can see you. So not even just in the instance of order, but just so I can see you, it's kind of nice to feel free to plop that raised hand button there. And I think we were going to start just because of scheduling with the district attorney if he has arrived. Mr. Gonzalez, are you here? We're actually ahead of schedule, so I think that's a very good sign. Without further ado, I guess we'll move into the civil court race. There are several candidates here for the Kings County-wide civil court race. And we'll start with, I believe I saw Miss Inga O'Neill present, and I'll give a quick introduction for each candidate, but then really, I'll let the folks really bring it to life. So Inga O'Neill is a principal law clerk in the Kings County Supreme Court civil term, where she's worked as a court attorney and as a principal law clerk. Ms. O'Neill is a former president and current secretary of the Association of Law Secretaries to the Justices of the Supreme Court and Surrogate Court. She's a member of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association and a member of the New York City Bar Association's Minority in the Courts Committee. In 2017, she was presented with the Employee of the Year Award for chamber staff at the Kings County Supreme Court civil term. Ms. O'Neill is a graduate of SUNY at Stony Brook and received her JD from Hofstra University. Ms. O'Neill, I think you're here. Do you want to take it away and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. I'm very happy to be here, to be invited. I'm honored and humbled. I just want to be able to share a little bit about myself, but before doing so, congratulations to the newly elected board as well as to the outgoing board. I did see a couple of friendly faces that I know on the Zoom. So thank you again to everyone. I'm running countywide for a civil court judge seat. I have been a principal law clerk and a court attorney working in the court system in Brooklyn for over 18 years. I've worked alongside 3 different judges, all of whom I consider to be my mentors. They were all very experienced judges, so I feel that I have learned from the best. That's Judge Randy Jackson, who has since retired, Judge Larry D. Martin, who has just recently retired, as well as Judge Donald Kurtz, who I currently work with. In working in the court system, I have handled a multitude of cases involving both simple and complex areas of the law, ranging from car accident cases, negligence cases, to breach of contract, Section 1983 cases, labor law cases, a wide variety of cases. I've done settlement conferences with attorneys in cases that are pending in the Supreme Court, as well as cases that are pending as part of the Civil Appeals Management Program. And I have also, during this time period, worked as a small claims court arbitrator on a volunteer basis since 2005. So I've had experience doing that in small claims court, rendering binding decisions and settling matters in the small claims court. My work has been recognized in the Supreme Court. I was awarded with the Employee of the Year Award, as was mentioned in my bio, back in 2017. And I've also worked in the Office of the Self-Represented, giving basic legal information to unrepresented litigants coming into the court system. So on a professional level, I've made it my duty to learn as much as I can working in the court system and to do a variety of different roles in the court system, because I see my role as serving the public, and that's what's important to me. In terms of professional organization involvement, I am the current secretary and former president of the Law Secretaries Association. I was awarded with the Faith O'Neill Award for service to the association. I care about my fellow law clerks, and I'm committed to ensuring that, thank you for the 1 minute notice. I'm committed to ensuring that we are safe in the workplace. I have also a board member of the Metropolitan Black Bar Association, and I'm co-chair of the Judiciary Committee. I have also, the reason why I am running is because I believe that my job as a law clerk and the court attorney in the court system is to serve people. And I see the role as a jurist as somebody to serve others and to ensure that people don't come to court because they want to. It's because they have a dispute that needs to be resolved, and I would love to assist in resolving people's problems. So I just wanted to share a little bit of my story and myself with you tonight, and to ask for your support. And thank you again for having me. I hope in the future to be able to join you again and help in any way that I can. Thank you.
Much. And we definitely will have time after each person for any questions that the audience members may have. I don't know if folks have things they're wondering about, I don't know, campaigning in this environment or anything like that. I guess I have just one quick question. Do you think there's something like that most surprises people about civil court, like that most people don't know that you would like people to take away about like what civil court does or what it doesn't do, anything like that?
I think people don't realize possibly how busy civil court is. It's often referred to as the people's court, because that's where people go to handle what may seem to be an everyday matter. Let's suppose you've had some work done in your house, some construction work done in your house, and the work wasn't done properly. You need to seek assistance from the court in order to resolve the problem. So I don't think that sometimes people understand that it's a very busy court, and there's a wide variety of civil matters that are handled in civil court. It's the people's court. And I don't think everyone knows that, the general public, that is.
Thank you so much. Any other questions for Ms. O'Neill? Great. Well, thank you so much. I think then we'll move
Tyler,
on.
Sorry to break in. I couldn't find the hand
Yeah.
raise function. I think we should ask all of our judges whether they've been through the screening panel.
Yes. Okay. Great point. Let's just make that a default question. I will ask that, or people can address it on their own during their time after this. Ms. O'Neill, have you been through the judicial screening panel?
Yes, I have been through the Kings County Democratic Party's judicial screening panel in 2018 and as well as 2019, and I was found qualified on both occasions. And after you've been found qualified 2 years in a row consecutively, you're given a waiver. But I have been found qualified by the Kings County Democratic Party screening panel, yes.
Much. And Jason, great point. Thank you.
I have a question. Is that okay?
Definitely.
Tyler,
Yeah, definitely.
can you hear me? Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Hi, Inga. So there are so many women running in this race and the judicial races in general. I'm so happy to see that as a fellow woman. So what does that mean to you specifically in a time like this where we have Kamala Harris as the new vice president and so many other women leading, running, and taking charge? What does that mean to you specifically as a woman of color?
For me, I believe that this is the time. This is our time. And I see it as an opportunity that we as women in general, and particularly women of color, to take the reins and to step out into the realm of possibilities of being able to lead, whether it's running for elected office as a judge, or whether it's running for elected office as a vice president or city council. I know there's the 21 for 21 group, because there's so much that we can offer and so much that we can contribute. And I think a lot of times we as women, there's something called the imposter syndrome, where we sometimes doubt ourselves and think that, well, we're not good enough, or we don't have all the credentials that are needed to do the job. But we just have to have faith in ourselves and believe ourselves and know that we can do the job. We can do the job just as well as anyone else. And particularly as a woman of color, it's very inspiring. I think it sets an example to young people of color, minorities who may not see us. Well, with Kamala Harris in office, obviously that's a great example of someone who's in the White House, but it's helpful on a community level, on a regular level, whether it's the state level or the city level, to see representatives of people who look like you in office. And I think that encourages our young people, and I think that's very important. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm sorry if my mic was cutting out a little bit earlier. I've taken off my headphones. So next up, we have in the civil court race, we have Judge Hila Capel. Just a quick bio. Judge Capel was born and raised in New York and lives here in Brooklyn. She got her JD from Cardozo Law School and began her legal career as a litigator for 5 years, after which she served as a court attorney for 7 years. Judge Capel was appointed to the Housing Court bench 3 years ago, currently sitting in the trial part in Brooklyn. Judge Capel also sits on several bar committees and associations, including the DV Committee, Civility in the Courthouse Committee, and the Volunteer Lawyers Project. Judge Capel, do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. Hi, IND. As a former member, it is such an honor to be here. I remember sitting out in St. Francis in the crowd and looking up at the candidates and thinking, oh my God, it would be so amazing to one day come before you all, and here I am. So I feel like I've achieved something. And thank you so much for having me, of course. So yes, Tyler, thank you for the introduction. I am a Brooklyn resident. I have 2 small children as well, who my husband Jesse and I are raising in Brooklyn together. I've lived in Brooklyn most of my adult life, and now I'm sitting in Brooklyn, and it's an honor to be sitting as a trial judge. I'm sitting actually in the criminal court in a retrofitted courtroom because I've been doing all the housing trials with one other judge during COVID. I started sitting in the trial part in July. I'm having in-person operations, which first included non-payments, holdovers, and lockouts. Now I'm hearing primarily HP actions and illegal lockout proceedings, because all other cases, as you may have heard, are pretty much stayed. So that's been a very interesting thing to be doing during COVID, particularly because I have people coming in just about every day. Today, I had 2 parties on a case in front of me because what the housing court is trying to do is to provide access to justice to as many people as they can possibly provide access to justice to, people who don't have the internet, people who don't have phones, people who are locked out at a time where they are in danger for their lives. And so I've gained a lot of experiences as a trial judge during this time. I've learned a lot about using my own experiences that I try to bring to the bench every single day. As a mother who has kids who are in school and out of school and in school and out of school, I can really relate to other parents who are on their Zoom trying to have their case going and don't know how to unmute themselves. I mean, sometimes I have to have my son come press a button for me, and I tell all the people out there who are dealing with the same thing, look, it's okay. If your kid wants to come back in, doesn't bother me. My kid's running in and out of the room all the time anyway. So it's something that I do try to do, which is relate to people on as much of a human level as I can. I am reminded every day of the struggles that people face, and using my experiences, I really see everybody as a human. I try to say that I'm not a judgy judge. I try to apply the laws and the facts to each other, but I don't judge people for the circumstances that they're in. I don't judge people for who they are. None of that applies to the cases that come in front of me. It's an honor to be a judge in Brooklyn. It's an honor to be a housing court judge, but I do want to use my experience and my knowledge and go to civil as well, which is why I'm seeking your endorsement today. I feel that using all the experience in the court system, I will be able to translate that and go on to doing more in civil court, where I will reach a larger swath of Brooklyn. There's a hand raised. I don't know if I'm supposed to like call on people or not. I don't know how this works, but I can, because I don't mind not talking the whole time. Can I call on Alyssa and Kenan?
Have your whole
Yeah,
have your whole time and then call.
Okay. Yes. So, and I feel like if I hopefully get your endorsement, hopefully get elected, then I can use all the skills and knowledge that I've acquired in 10 years in the court system, plus as a litigator before, to serve on the Brooklyn Civil Court bench and to do my best for everyone there. Do I still have more time? Sorry, I just spoke very, very quickly. I'm happy to take questions. I prefer questions if that's okay.
Sure, yeah. Alyssa and Kenan, I don't know who has the question.
It's me. So I just wanted to know more about your experience on the housing court, especially over the last 2 years have probably been pretty insane. You've had not only a major reform of the housing laws in the HSTPA in 2019, but then also this year, it seemed like every week the law was changing with regard to evictions. And so just some of your experience around that and operating in an environment where things are always changing and nobody's really sure what's going on, and how you handle that.
Absolutely. So thanks for that question. 2019, the summer of 2019, there was a complete overhaul of the housing laws. And as a result, on a Friday, a 72-page document basically came out that was supposed to be implemented on a Monday. So my entire weekend was marking up this document, looking at all the red lines, trying to figure out exactly what my Monday would look like. And I basically sat in a room with that thing. And you know what? It was a very interesting period of time, both to see how the legislature really works with the courts, because as judges, we had to figure out different procedural rules, different substantive rules, and we had to know them and apply them. I wrote 2 or 3 decisions that came out right after what I call Hastapa, the HSTPA. Right after Hastapa came out, where I had to rule on discovery issues that for years and years and years, you could only go back a few years. Suddenly we're telling everybody, actually the law's completely changed. And now all that discovery that you provided, you actually have to go a few years back. And guess what? If it's not all in order, we get to go back to like 1984. So doing things like that for people really shook things up. But we had to do it because there was a new law and we had to know it and we had to implement it. And it was a challenge, but it was a challenge that I think my colleagues and I really rose to. And in terms of COVID, so that was a little, test drive for the weekly changes. You're totally right. I mean, things during COVID are changing so rapidly. And with housing, we have to know both federal, we have to know local law, we have to understand what's happening with mortgage foreclosure, we have to understand what's happening to our tenants and landlords that are coming in front of us every day. And so we have to be up to speed. I have an amazing supervisor who makes sure that we're all on the same page. And as a trial judge, also, any procedural rules that trickle in usually come to us in a different way because the cases that are in front of us are more easily adjournable or can be stayed because there's a different motion to them. But we are definitely on the move all the time. And I think that my colleagues and I are rising to the occasion. I'm very proud of the Housing Court bench during this time.
Much. Just real quickly, I have a request from Lynn Hill, who's trying to take attendance. So if you could make sure your Zoom screen name matches your actual name that you want us to use for the attendance. Melinda, I think you texted me. Do you have a question?
Hey, Melinda.
Yes, for some reason, I am having trouble with the function of raise hand as a host. Oh, I see it. Now I see it. This didn't just happen. Now I see it. In this very moment. Oh, so embarrassing. Anyway, hi, Hila. So I have the same question that I asked Inga. In terms of womanhood, what does this mean? We have so many women running for these judicial races, and I'm so happy to see that. So what does that mean to you?
So as I mentioned before, well, first of all, to see women running is incredible. I love it. I love being around all these women that are, whether they're running for the same spot as me or not, but you start to see the same people over and over, and it's a pleasure. Hi, everyone, and good luck. But, I do have 2 kids, and I feel like as a mom of 2 kids, to be able to run and hopefully set an example for other people who have young kids basically flying around the house, which I think some of you last Friday night actually saw my kids flying around the house because that's what they do. And, but I'm still going out there every day. I'm still doing my job. I'm still coming home. I'm still the one getting the calls from the school and all that stuff. But, we're like, I'm making it happen. And I think that it's not something I imagined I would be able to accomplish. So I do hope that I can serve as an example to other mothers and other women in general. I do think we are all serving as examples to other women, I gotta say. It's an
And that question wasn't necessarily to say, because you're a woman, you can't do the role. I just felt that it was so fulfilling as a women's advocate to see so many women who are just stepping up to the plate and saying, we can do this. So yeah, thank you.
Great. Forgive me if someone already asked this, but I want to make sure I ask my obligatory. Did you pass through the judicial screening panel?
Yes. And I think that somebody posted the names of people who passed through the panels as well. But I did. I passed through the one through the Democratic Party, and then to become a housing court judge, I passed through like 7 of them.
Okay, one second.
Great. Thanks so much. Does anyone else have any questions for?
Thank you so much.
Yes, Assemblywoman Simon.
Since you brought it up, Hila, how are you? I think a lot of people don't realize how many ways there are to get to the bench in New York, and you just referenced it. Perhaps you can just explain a little, because many people don't know the process to get to housing court, because it's fairly involved, and it might make some sense to share that with people.
Yeah. So thank you for that question. So for housing, there's basically 2 ways. You can be appointed to the bench, or you can be elected to the bench by coming in front of you and going through this process to get to civil. I'm asking for an endorsement, then I hope to get elected. But when I went to be appointed to housing, you do have to submit extensive applications to 2 different screening panels. There's about 4 or 5 rounds of those. So you have 2 screening panels through the Landlord Tenant Bar Advisory Council, basically, where you come in front of practitioners who will ask you sort of like Ken and Alyssa, but like much more specific questions about your record as a court attorney, things you've written. They'll throw scenarios at you. It's terrifying, but it's also, it keeps you on your toes, and they really know what they're talking about, and you're sitting in a room with practitioners who can talk shop with you. So it is also kind of cool, but there's 2 of those, and then you go through the city council, and that's another 2. And then you also have to do an extensive background check, and you go through a couple of higher rounds, basically until you're eventually appointed by the deputy chief judge, which is through the Office of Court Administration.
Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. Any other questions for Hila? I think if not, thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
I believe we're just going to take a slight break. We'll do 2 civil court, and then we'll do 2 after. But for right now, since the District Attorney Eric Gonzalez has joined us, are you here? I can give a quick intro. I believe he's in. Give me 1 second.
I'm here.
Oh, great! Thank you so much. I'll just do a quick introduction. Mr. Gonzalez grew up in East New York and Williamsburg, Brooklyn, graduated from Cornell University in 1992, got his JD from the University of Michigan in 1995. He spent his entire legal career in the Brooklyn DA's office, beginning in 1995 as an assistant district attorney in the Sex Crimes and Special Victims Bureau, and was eventually named chief assistant district attorney by his predecessor, the late Ken Thompson. In 2017, Mr. Gonzalez was elected Brooklyn District Attorney and is the first Latino to be elected as the district attorney in New York State. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. I'm Eric Gonzalez. I just announced my re-election bid on Tuesday. So IND is the first club that I'm appearing before as a prospective candidate for re-election. So thank you for giving me the chance. I want to thank Jason for allowing me to come on. I want to thank Steve Bronstein for doing the dynamics to get me on, because I had some Zooming issues. And of course, congratulations to Tyler for becoming the new president. I'm not sure who's on because I joined a little late, but to the district leaders, Josh and Jesse, thank you. And of course, I saw Assemblywoman Joanne Simon a few moments ago. Hello, Assembly member, nice to see you. I'm running for re-election. I was elected in November of 17. I took office officially in January of 2018, and I hope that a lot of you already know me. I've been committed first and foremost to public safety, wanting to make sure that Brooklyn continues to lead the way towards safety. And in the first few years in office, I can tell you that Brooklyn was in fact leading the way. We saw from the time I was the acting DA after the passing of Ken Thompson until this terrible year we had in 2020, Brooklyn had reduced the number of shootings by 40%. We had reduced our homicide rate by a full third. 2020 happened and we saw a spike in shootings. And I am promising the community of Brooklyn that this spate of violence we saw, it was heartbreaking. It won't be allowed to continue. The numbers have started to come down already. We're not where we need to be. I was able to look at all of you in 2019 and tell you we had the fewest number of shootings in Brooklyn's history. The year before, in 2018, I was able to tell you we had the fewest number of people murdered in the county in history. And last year we saw a real spike. It's because of all the trauma and disruption of COVID. It's not the new normal. We're going to talk a little bit. I hope to take some questions about, criminal justice reform. Is that the cause for the spike? I'm going to give you a sort of preemptive answer. It's not. What we saw is, a real increase in violence in 5 or 6 neighborhoods of Brooklyn that were most impacted by COVID and also impacted by policing practices during the COVID and also during the protest that we saw around racial and social justice issues. But for all of you I hope that you understand a little bit of what I've been trying to do in Brooklyn. It's the right balance between reform and safety. I don't believe that there's a trade-off in making our criminal justice system fairer. That we can actually do that. We can actually have the reforms that make our system fairer without sacrificing public safety. And so I was the first DA in New York State and New York City to completely stop prosecuting marijuana. I was the first DA to support the raise the age legislation. New York and New York City, but Brooklyn in particular, leads the state in implementation. 92% of children go directly to family court. And I'm very proud of that. As DA, I was the first DA locally to have our own bail reform policies to reduce our reliance on cash bail before Albany acted. And of course, I've done some reforms that I think all of you should know about. They're the first DA in the United States to do it. So I'm the first DA to have a post-conviction justice bureau. That not only includes the CRU unit that was pre-existing, but it includes a parole and clemency unit, a healing unit, and a second chance unit, which is really a sentencing review unit. I was the first DA in the United States to hire immigration attorneys and to have a collateral consequences policy. And I was DA to successfully sue ICE. And I did that with our great Attorney General, Tish James. We sued ICE, we won, and ICE was banned from our courtrooms. Now we have litigation that also prevents ICE and some legislation that prevents ICE from doing that. But I've been fighting very hard for immigrants and non-citizens in our justice system, between trying to prevent ICE from coming into our courthouse, but also from all of the collateral consequences of the work. And most recently, I made an announcement. I have already actually vacated many prostitution warrants, and we're going to start doing the work of sealing and expunging records for people who are, and have been convicted of both loitering for prostitution, which has now been banned by Albany, but also prostitution, trying to seal and expunge those records. And I've been working to do other things to make our city safer. I announced a new street safety bureau that's different than the vehicular unit that we had before, because it's really a preventative group. We're going to look at street design. We're going to do prevention work. We're going to work with DOT, and we have restorative practices that we do in Red Hook and other places. So I'm a person who believes there's a lot we can do to reform our justice system without sacrificing public safety. I know 2020 was a very difficult year for us in terms of public safety. I know a lot of people had concerns about their own safety. We had a spike in hate crimes in 19 and in 20. We were able to get that down by over 50%. So there's a lot of work to do, but most importantly, I think we're at a crossroads in our policing systems where we have to demand accountability. I think we've all saw during the George Floyd protest and the insurrection that happened in the Capitol that there are two distinct forms of policing in this country, and this city is better than other places, but it's not where it needs to be. Racial disparities and inequities are very ripe in our system. And as DA, I speak out about this and I take concrete action to try to make it better and to fix it. So I'm hoping that I'll save some time for questions, but it's been a difficult year. Our courts were largely closed, almost no trials at all in 2020. I've been managing COVID. We have about 1,200 employees at the DA's office. We've never closed, but we took it on the chin. We had a lot of.
Great. Oh, I don't think I did that. It looks like you got muted. I don't think that was me. Oops. It looks like you're muted.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Now?
Oh yeah. It looks like thank you so much. It looks like Steve or Catherine may have a question.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. District Attorney. I have a question about the spike in dangerous crimes in Brooklyn, and I know from reading about it that people seem not really to know why. It's kind of there are theories, and I was curious if you had theories on what the cause was, or any you've seen data as to what can explain things like that, just generally.
I think that the real spike, 50% of the increase in the most significant violence in the shootings and the homicides happened in July and August of this past summer. So 50% of the increase just happened within those 2 months. Those are staggering numbers. The data behind it, there's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes to keep people safe from gun violence. There's the debriefing of people to the location of guns. There's the solving of cases and the accountability functions that happen in law enforcement. And during COVID, so the beginning of 2020, I would say up until March, the numbers were great. April, they started to move a little bit, moving in the wrong direction. And by May and June, they had really started to move in the wrong direction. July exploded. August was very high. We had as many people shot in Brooklyn in July, August of 2020 as almost for the entirety of 2019. And that's a shocking number. In 2 months, we almost had as many people shot as had in the entire. There were things that happened. Can you still see me?
We can hear you, not see you though.
Yeah, I'm having some Wi-Fi problems. There's a few things that happened. First of all, the things that we normally do to keep people safe wasn't happening because of COVID. The policing systems had taken a real step back. So the police had a problem with COVID. And we all know that we've at least read 20 to 25% of police officers were out in the beginning because of COVID. In certain communities, especially where COVID was, had hit us harder. And you know that in a lot of the communities of color, COVID numbers have been, really spiked in those neighborhoods. The police had also been hit harder there. So in some precincts, they were down over 30% of regular patrol strength. They were out. During that July and August, they made only 1/3 of the arrests that they normally make. In fact, we went in a 2-year span. We have 53% fewer arrests in 2020 than we had in the preceding year. So 53% fewer arrests. So police, for many reasons, some related to COVID, some related to their anger around the chokehold bill and the diaphragm laws that passed in the city council, had really taken a step back. They were also covering the George Floyd protest, and so they weren't around to do some regular enforcement. Our violence interrupters and our other CMS folks, they did not have the PPEs. They weren't getting paid. They weren't out in the streets doing what they needed to do to try to stop the violence. I will also tell you that in the precincts that we saw the highest number of shootings, we saw the lowest number of arrests and closures. So the solve rate in Brownsville at one point was like 12%. The solve rate in East New York was like 15%. Normally those solve rates are closer to 40%, which meant that 9 out of 10 shooters were basically getting away with it, not being apprehended. They were wearing masks, they had latex gloves. People were angry at the police, were not participating and not helping. So we really hit rock bottom. I don't think that we're going to see that again. I think that we learned a lot from that. I think the movement that we have, which is to put more resources into our communities and build better partnerships with community members, are going to pay dividends. I know that as DA, I'm making an investment into Brownsville. We're going to be running some restorative justice programs in Brownsville. We're going to be doing some violence interruption as well in East New York and Brownsville. So there are investments we're making as the DA's office. The city is going to put a lot more money. I'm a lot more comfortable in saying I don't think we're going to see this again. I think that 2020 is going to be the abnormal thing and not the new norm in terms of violence. But we really saw a scaling down of police action. Some of that could be good if there are things they were doing that caused harm in the communities. But in terms of getting the drivers of violence, holding them responsible, that stopped happening. Our courts were closed, so there was no grand juries to indict folks. And that caused a cycle of retaliation and retribution in the community. And so what do I mean by that? I meant that if there was no action taken by law enforcement, then the streets were going to get revenge and handle it themselves. The first 3 people killed in 2021 in Brooklyn were all the main suspects.
Well, hold on 1 sec. I'm sorry. You may have been muted.
Hello?
There you go.
I don't know what the last thing you heard, but what I was saying is without those arrests happening and the identification of the shooters, we started to see a cycle of retaliation and retribution. And so the first 3 people murdered in Brooklyn this year in 2021 were the main suspects in shootings at the end of 2020. And it's until we take action in sort of incapacitating the shooters and get them off the streets, there's going to be a cycle of retaliation. So I'm working on doing that. We've indicted dozens of people for gun violence. We've hosted 3 gun buybacks in the last couple of months. We just did one with Tish James's office, and we've taken hundreds of guns off the street. And we just did a gun trafficking case, getting the guns that are coming from down south. I think we just broke up a major pipeline of guns. In fact, that pipeline we suspect was responsible for bringing up the gun that may have been used to kill the 1-year-old child in Bedford-Stuyvesant. So we're working very hard on disrupting the supply and access to guns as part of this violence interruption. But I understand, the limitations of the office is we're never going to successfully arrest our way out of that gun violence. We need community engagement, community partnerships to prevent violence. And so I'm going to do my part in reaching out and making sure that we have good relationships with our violence interrupters and that we are providing resources. And so your DA's office is providing resources to Brownsville and East New York, because that's where we saw the majority of shootings in 2020. So I don't know if there are other questions.
Yeah, I think I see. Maybe we have time for one more. It looks like Joanne, you have a question?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm a question box tonight. So how are you, Mr. DA? We're happy to have you here. I have really 2 questions. One is we've been talking, certainly I know among the legislature and advocates about increased rates of domestic violence, particularly during this period of COVID when people are home. There have been the organizations that really help women who are subject to domestic violence have been saying that there is increased numbers, and they're concerned they're not getting calls because people are home and they can't call with the abuser there. And so there's a lot of concern about that. And then the other question I have is, it kind of goes along with the increase in violence and I think the frustration that many young people have. And that is the difficulty in school that they're having with instruction, with not having in-person classes, and how many young people are having trouble with reading. And we know that that's highly correlated with incarceration. And I won't tell you about my bill because I know you know about my bill, but can you talk a little bit about ways that we can help with working with young people and what your office is doing, working with young people to help keep them out of trouble?
Yes, and thank you for your question. So the first question is about gender-based violence, domestic violence, and sexual assault crimes. And I'm raising that because we also believe that a number of children, that it's not, we're not seeing the reporting, but we believe, and experts tell us that there's been more sexual abuse of children during this period of time and less reporting of that as well. But the numbers are true. Sanctuary for Families and Safe Horizon and other groups that I work with are very concerned because we've seen an actual decrease in reported cases of domestic violence. Our experience tells us otherwise, and we know that there have been calls to hotlines and to other places that actually show an increase. But in terms of what's being reported to the police, we've seen a real decline. We've also seen that decline as it relates to crimes committed against children and other vulnerable people. We've been trying to do a lot around that issue of raising the understanding of people who are mandatory reporters, including DOE, for teachers on Zooms to do check-ins and other things to try to see if we can get to this. There was a case very recently that was in the paper where a very sharp-eyed teacher saw something terrible, reported it, and it led to an arrest where a child was being chained. And so these are important issues. We have some good news in Brooklyn. We did receive funding. I guess it came from the city council and the mayor's office, but we're going to get a brand new family justice center in Brooklyn. It's going to move. Currently, it's co-located in the Brooklyn DA's office. It's going to get its own floor. It's going to have its own entrance, so people will not have to enter through the DA side, enter through the other side of the building. And it's going to allow us to co-locate many more resources in our community. So it's being built out right now. The funding has been put there for it. DCAS is designing the space. This is going to be on the Cadman side of the Marriott Hotel, so they'll have a separate entrance. And our Domestic Violence Bureau is going to move across to that side. So we will be there, but they'll have their own. They won't have to go through sort of the same rigmarole that they have to get through to get into the DA's office, and also be seen coming through the DA's office. I think one of the issues that we're also seeing, Assembly Member, is as people really have real doubts about policing systems, that even victims of domestic violence and others are afraid to call the police because they're afraid of what the outcome could look like for their loved one. And so restoring confidence in our policing systems and law enforcement will actually keep us a lot safer. We just have to really work on that. In terms of our young people, we have two things going on in Brooklyn. We have a young adult court and criminal court. And we also have our youth part, which is part of the Raise the Age legislation. As I mentioned earlier, the Raise the Age youth part, we have the highest success rate in the state. We send the most cases from Brooklyn to family court percentage-wise, meaning that I'm not choosing to keep those cases in adult court and charge them as adults, but I let juveniles go to juvenile court, to go to family court and be treated as children and have their adjudications there. I'm very proud of that fact. We've been able to do that very successfully. Our young adult court is remarkable because 97% of our young children that come through that court leave without a criminal conviction, obviously reducing the collateral consequences. We all know that those things are tremendous, but we're also putting in money and resources into children. So the DA's office, through forfeiture money that we get from drugs and other things, we're sponsoring some after school programs, some sporting programs, a chess program, a soccer program, basketball. We have an Explorers program. We have a moot court program. So we're doing a lot to engage young people. And of course, in our diversionary programs, we're working with stakeholders, members of the clergy and other people to give people big brother, big. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure if you heard everything, but we're doing, if anyone is interested in working with us, with our youth who are involved, criminal justice involved, we're always looking for people to mentor them. We're trying to, we've changed the way we handle some of our community service. In the past, community service was like sometimes menial tasks. Now we're trying to engage people with going to someone's job and getting internships and mentoring. So when they finish their mandate with the court, they actually leave with skills and resources, something they can put on their resume, as opposed to saying, I clean graffiti. Not that cleaning graffiti is not important, because we have too much graffiti, but the way that we treat our young people, we're trying to make sure that when we have them, that we provide services. And I think what distinguishes my approach to young people in a crime fighting sense is that it's not just the services that matter, it's the connection with a group, a person, or someone that they have some accountability. There's someone in their community, their neighborhood, that they have a connection with, and hopefully that connection continues. And when they're finding themselves, in trouble or in the wrong sense, they have someone who they can reach out to. Unfortunately, a lot of young people, they don't have someone at home they can do that with, to reach out to, and they ultimately wind up reaching out to gang members and other people when they have problems. And so we're trying to connect young people to solid stakeholders in our community that are willing to, stay with them for a period of time.
Yeah, and thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming in. I think in the interest of making sure we get to everybody, I might move us on to the other civil court races. But thank you so much, District Attorney Eric Gonzalez, for joining us.
Can I just say thank you? Like I said, this is my first club since announcing on Tuesday. I'm trying to be as COVID responsible as possible. So if IND will endorse, I obviously love that. But I'm hoping that you would give me the honor of carrying my name on your petitions. I'm trying to limit the amount of people out there who are collecting petitions, and that would be important public safety point as well. Been very concerned about how we deal with COVID in our criminal justice system. And I think, and I should have said, and I'm going to close with this, that I've also spent a lot of time looking at the people that are held in on pretrial detention, and we've successfully released a number of people because of COVID. Unlike the people who got released where you're hearing that they committed all this crime, we didn't do it by categories. We did one by one analysis, and we've been very successful. And the people that we've released, over 300 people, only a handful have really gone out and committed additional crimes. So that can be done successfully. And it's further proof that we can continue to reform our bail system.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us tonight. With that, we will keep on going with our the other two candidates in the civil court races, Kings County wide. Next up, we have the Honorable Sharon Hudson, who is an acting Supreme Court judge in Kings County. Judge Hudson is a lifelong resident of Brooklyn. She obtained her BA from John Jay College of Criminal Justice and her JD from Brooklyn Law School. After law school, Judge Hudson became a law clerk for a civil and Supreme Court judge. She then worked as a pro se attorney, assisting individuals regarding matters before the court. Judge Hudson was elected as a civil court judge of Kings County in 2011 and became an acting Supreme Court judge in 2017. Judge Hudson, go ahead. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, President Tyler Rocky. I'd like to thank the Independent Neighborhood Democrats for the invitation to be on Zoom tonight. Also, I'd like to give credit and to your past president, Jason Shelley. Also, your very hardworking individuals that you have there, the former Assemblywoman Joan Millman and Assemblywoman Joanne Simon. I have, as you stated, I have worked in the court system as I was elected to civil court as a civil court judge in 2011, and I've worked in criminal court since that time. At that time, they needed criminal court judges, and so I actually worked in criminal court. I liked criminal court, so I stayed in criminal court. I've done various programs since I've been in lower criminal court and also in active Supreme Court that deal with alternative sentencing. I worked in various parts, like the drug treatment part, the youth part, before it became the age, raise the age, before it came to raise the age part, and also even a few years in the gun part. I also am very involved in the community and have participated in various programs in the community. For example, one of them, the Meet the Judges program, where judges actually go around and are introduced to the community and answer questions and also give legal or give information regarding the court system. During my 10 years, when I came into criminal court, I worked in the misdemeanor drug treatment part and made some changes on the alternative sentencing to provide more opportunity for individuals to actually have treatment. When I came in, the treatment was for about a year. And so we were able to change that and be able to add varying degrees of treatment for individuals who were ready to try treatment, but what not ready
Monet, you coming
to
to
go
bed?
the full way. Excuse me?
Sorry, that was a mistaken failure to mute.
Okay.
You're fine.
All right. I am now up for re-election this year. And as I've sat on the bench, I've been hardworking, dedicated, and really, really focused on being a fair judge, fair and equal to individuals that appear before me. As to any additional information, I'll take questions.
Great, thank you so much. I guess I'll just ask my normal obligatory question. Have
Sure.
you passed through the Brooklyn screening panel, judicial screening panel?
Yes, I've been qualified by the judicial screening panel.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Judge Hudson? Great. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining us. And if I'm missing folks, if I'm missing people with questions, please remember that raise hand function, because I'm kind of scrolling across the screen here. So I hope I'm not missing anyone. But thank you so much, Judge Hudson, for
Wait, I
joining.
have a question.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Judge Hudson. Thanks for coming. I wanted to know what your biggest accomplishment has been professionally.
Professionally? I would say what I've enjoyed, and that is creating, for example, when I made the changes in the drug treatment part and in the misdemeanor part, that was a big accomplishment because it had been years where they were stuck in the same system, but the number of individuals who would actually get involved in the treatment, the numbers were going down. So we needed a way to be able to get more people to get involved with the treatment, to have the resolutions, and also for them to receive the alternative sentences. So by the changes that we made, we actually had more numbers. And when I say we, I mean myself and also the drug treatment team that I work with. We actually had more individuals who came to the drug treatment program and were successful in completing the program. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Well, I think if there are not any other questions, thank you so much, Judge Hudson, for, oh, I'm
Wait,
sorry.
it looks like Helen has a question.
Helen, go ahead. You're muted now.
Hi, Judge. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm going to ask you, what do you find frustrating being on the bench?
Wow.
I know you have to be careful, but is there one area maybe you would like to see work on? Put it like that.
Let's see, other than maybe supplies and having the proper things we need to go forward and work. I couldn't say anything that frustrates me. You know, every now and then you may get individuals who come in who try to be frustrating, but my temperament is very even. So I try not to get flustered regarding anything. And there's nothing really I can say that sticks out that's so annoying or so frustrating to me.
What do you think? I mean, do you see something that's depressing, especially with young people?
Well,
that's my heart. Young
okay.
people.
Yes. So when I did work in the youth part, what I noticed was we had a lot of individuals who were coming through the courts because they had issues at home. So that was one of my main questions. Okay, what's going on at home? What's happening at home? Can we get a social worker? Can we provide them with the services that they need? Can we create that situation so they can get help so that we can resolve it and so they're not turning to ways, criminal ways where they're arrested? So that was one of the things that we really worked. The services were coming up, not like they have now with the youth part, with the raise the age parts, but we were able to go outside and get additional services to assist these individuals.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rachel Maddow will actually have more on what's happening in Texas and the federal response with the
Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
John, if you do me a favor and mute your phone or mute yourself there. I have a question if no one else does. I guess it's almost like almost the reverse of what Helen asked. Is there a particular development that you've seen during your time on the bench that's been most encouraging to you, or the change that you think is most in the right direction?
Well, actually, the changes in the youth part, I do actually sit as a backup for the raise the age youth part. And the changes in that alone are so phenomenal because it gives these young people, an opportunity to receive the services that they need, and they're more available. So I think that's phenomenal.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. So
I'm going to be okay.
Thank you very much for coming. So I'll now introduce our fourth candidate for the civil court seat in Brooklyn, Ms. Casilda Roper-Simpson. Ms. Casilda Roper-Simpson was born in Panama and immigrated to the United States when she was 5. She earned her BA from Baruch College and her JD from Brooklyn Law School. After Brooklyn Law, Ms. Roper-Simpson started a private practice, and for more than 25 years, she's represented hundreds of cases in the federal and state courts, including a member of the original legal team in the case of Abner Louima, a victim of police brutality in New York City. Ms. Roper-Simpson is also an adjunct professor at Malloy College and the host of the radio show Know Your Rights on WVIP 93.5 FM. Ms. Roper-Simpson, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for having me this evening. I want to say welcome to the new board, Tyler Rocky, and the outgoing board. Congratulations and thank you for the work that you do in the community. Thank you for that introduction. You kind of helped me to help me with my 4 minutes. I have been very active in terms of attending. I like to describe myself as homegrown in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I went to school, PS 289, Dyker Heights, Bay Ridge. I went to James Madison High School where Ruth Bader Ginsburg attended as well. And while at PS 289, Shirley Chisholm unbought and unbossed attended that school. And I remember in 5th grade sitting there and listening to her in assembly to think that I would grow up with that thought in my mind and become one of those young women that she was speaking to. I attended New York City Technical College and received my legal secretarial science degree, and then went on to Brewer College and was political science major and went to Brooklyn Law School. And I've been practicing as an attorney for over 25 years, but I've been in the legal business since being a legal secretary for more than 35 years. And when I started Brooklyn Law School, I had my two children, my 4-year-old daughter and my 9-month-old baby. And first year law school was pretty tough. But I saw that line at the end of the tunnel and I was determined to become an attorney. I was an older law school, that, as they would say. And my legal career included starting out at my sister's office. I wanted to work in my community. And my sister's office was in Bed-Stuy, right across the street from the Restoration. And I remember being there and seeing a lot of folks come into the office and knowing that they needed help. And working with Vanguard, which was right up the street on Troop Avenue, of course, from the Pathmark at the time, if my memory is certainly correct. I did a lot of pro bono consultation for those constituents. And then I was also the co-founder for a rotating internship program for the NAACP Brooklyn branch for the Legal Redress Committee. And we had a lot of folks that had a backlog then regarding their legal issues in the community. And I remember, because I was teaching at the time at New York City Technical College, and I was so honored to teach there because I had attended that college. And I was teaching in the paralegal program. And teaching there, I was able to get the students at that program and law students to come in to help. And I started teaching there. And after being with my sister, I realized I wanted to do criminal defense work. And I had the greatest mentors ever. I had Joyce Davis and Estelle Rooms. And I became a criminal defense attorney. And my first armed robbery trial was in front of Judge Martin. He was just amazing in terms of managing his courtroom, and I admired him about that. And doing criminal defense work, I was on the 18B panel. And I became an 18B panel attorney since 1998. And then being the 18B attorney, and I did in-house counsel. So over 25 years, I've done criminal work, civil work, family law work. And in doing all of those things, as a civil court attorney, I realized that when you get appointed as a civil court judge, you have to be able to prepare to be in any of those courts, and whether it's family court, whether it's civil court, or whether it's criminal court. I need to be able to hit the ground running, and I can. I'm prepared to not learn on the job. And being the people's attorney, the people's judge, I've been the people attorney for 25 years. I can be the people judge. 25 years I've been doing this. And as an academia, I've been teaching at a law college for 12 years. I teach in the criminal justice department and paralegal. I mentor a lot of young people, and I'm presently a mentor in Brooklyn United, for Brooklyn United, 3 young ladies right now. And I'm a published author. I recently wrote Detective and the Criminal Justice Process in 2015 as a collaboration, and also getting ready to write another chapter. And I know I really appreciate the endorsement of and support of this particular body. My membership with Thigh Park Lions and the various things that I've done, and getting an award from them as well. Boys and Girls High School campus and fundraising for them, for the basketball team with the young ladies that were there. NAACP Brooklyn branch, my membership, my commitment to the community, my commitment to my job as an attorney in terms of criminal justice, in terms of my academia. I'm prepared for this position. I know that I will make Brooklyn proud. I am a product of Brooklyn, and I've lived here long as a Brooklynite. And I know that in terms of knowing the information that was needed for my community, my radio show allowed me to do that. I had a lot of local leaders come on to the radio show to give information to the community. I have been recently for Metropolitan Black Bar Association, not only a member, but the co-chair for the Civil Rights Committee. And recently, 2019 and 2020, as a CLE person, I was a panelist. And as a panelist, I gave the
Whoops. Sorry about that. It looks, Ms. Roper, I think you're muted. You might have muted. There you go.
As a panelist for the Metropolitan Black Bar Association, I gave 3 panels. I was a panelist for summation, ethical consideration in trial practice and trial skills for other matters arbitration. I've also was an arbitrator for the small claims court, hearing various type of issues that come from small claims. Presently, I'm an administrative law judge for New York State. Right now, I do 3 hearings a week and write decisions. I have been a litigator. I have represented plaintiffs and defendants. I have been, and now as an administrative law judge, I understand how important it is to listen, write decisions. And there's also this premise that judges can't be impartial because they've all either a prosecution or pro-defense. I've been on both sides. And representing Abner Louimer, I've had the privilege of working alongside the late DA Ken Thompson. And representing, I'm sorry?
I'm sorry to jump in. Just in the interest of making sure we get to people's questions, do you mind if we move to some questions now?
Yeah, sure, please.
Howard, go ahead, Howard.
Howard? I don't see a Howard.
Oh, sorry. Howard, you're
okay, yes. Okay, I see him.
Sorry. I have 2 questions. One, have you been through the screening panel?
I have not. I have absolutely no faith in the screening panel.
You don't believe that lawyers should be subject themselves to peer review?
Peer review by whom? I believe that my qualifications to the people that I will be serving in Brooklyn should not be judged by a handful of people.
All right. Well, we're a handful of people and we're going to judge you.
Well,
The next question is, what agency are you in?
Provided that handful of people here with my qualifications.
All right. What agency are you in ALJ at? I'm just curious.
In terms of getting the authority and permission to run, my agency does not allow me to provide that information, but I do work for public service for the state. I do social service cases, and I had to obtain permission in writing to run.
Okay, that's fair.
Pardon?
I said that's fair. That's a fair answer. I didn't know that that you needed permission to disclose where you work. I'm done.
Great, thank you, Howard. Does anyone else? It looks like Jason, you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I actually want to circle back to the judicial screening panel point again, because I hear you're it's not a perfect panel. It's not a perfect way, but it is something that it's a tool that we use. And I think a lot of people around the borough use to, get an understanding of judges' qualifications. It's not perfect, but, I sat on it a couple of years ago. For people who don't know, one of the things that we did was we went back and we talked to opposing counsel, if the person was a lawyer, or we talked to the parties who practiced in front of the judge. And it's a group of folks who put a lot of time into understanding how a person, their understanding of the process and how they conduct themselves as a judge or in a courtroom, et cetera. So I just wanted to maybe share a little bit more about if that's not a good, if you don't think that's something worth going through, judges can't really, there's so many limitations on how you campaign. How should we distinguish between good jurists, bad jurists, how people might be as a judge if you don't think we should use those kinds of tools?
I don't know if I don't, forgive me if I imply that it's not something that you shouldn't go through. For me, particularly I don't have any faith in the process, in the sense that I think people should have their qualification questioned. If someone asks me for my qualification, I've been on the panel. I've been on the 18B panel, assigned counsel plan, and every 3 years we have to be recertified. And that requires us to provide information from judges and some of our adversaries. And from 1998, I've been on that panel, and I have been recertified. My recertification was just as recent as about a year or so ago. So nothing has speaks to, if I had an issue, I would not be on that panel.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us tonight. And that's actually the fourth of our 4 civil court judges. So thank you so much, Ms. Roper Simpson, for joining us. And I think now we'll move to our final race of the night, is the surrogates court race. The first candidate we'll hear from is Honorable Judge Dwene Esther Paul, who is a Kings County Civil Court judge elected in 2015. She is the first person of Haitian American descent to be elected civil court judge in the state of New York. Judge Paul got a dual BA and a Master of Arts in Public Policy at SUNY Stony Brook and got her JD from George Washington University, which I have to shout out as an alum. Judge Paul began her legal career as a judicial law clerk for an administrative judge in Baltimore and later became in-house counsel for a Fortune 500 insurance company. During her time as an attorney, she represented people in supreme, civil, and small claims court proceedings. Judge Paul?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be before you and talk to you a little bit about myself and my candidacy. Thank you to the executive board. I see quite a few elected officials, district leaders. Thank you so much. So I am excited about this opportunity to continue to serve the community, but now in a different capacity as a surrogate court judge. I believe in a purpose-driven life, that things happen in life all for you to gain something, an experience, empathy, a skill set for the purpose of you giving back and serving to the community. I will tell you that my first experience to the court system was when I was very young. I was 9 years old and my brother went on a youth group trip and he got in an accident and he passed away. And that triggered two things. It triggered a wrongful death lawsuit in Supreme Court, and it also triggered a family court case as my parents kind of worked things through to figure out the best way to raise me. From that experience, I realized how important it was to have an advocate in the courtroom, a voice, because in family court, they assign an attorney to the child. And so I met with the attorney, explained how I felt, and at that time, I also met with the judge because the judge wanted to know what my thoughts were and how I felt and where I wanted to, and what my position was. I didn't realize how important it was to have a judge who understood my experience of life, understood what it meant for me in my community. I learned how important it was to have that advocate and to have that judge that understood. And at that age, I realized, I said, I want that job. I would like to become a judge when I grow up. But you know, when you're young, you want to be a firefighter, you want to be a rock star. I had no idea what that journey would look like to become a judge. That wasn't something that was in my immediate family or in my immediate environment, lawyers, judges. You know, my parents are immigrants from Haiti. I was the first generation to be born here in this country. And my mother was an orphan at 8. She started formal schooling at the age of 13. And she came to this country with very, very humble beginnings. She started from scratch, but she came, like many of us do, with a desire, a hope that this American system could provide a good education with hard work and achieve something so that way my experience of life would be different. And she did just that. She graduated from CUNY, she became a nurse, she bought a house. And you know, I talk about a purpose-driven life, and I did go on to law school, but all of my practice, majority was in civil law. But I strayed away from family court because I thought it would be too personal, but I never forgot what that experience was like for my parents to come here, English as a second language, and what it meant to need to get access to resources. And so I sat on Community Board 3. I was the director of community service for the Metropolitan Black Bar Association. I was active in my church and active in VITA, the Democratic Club in Bedford-Stuyvesant, where I live. And I put together workshops, programs, panel discussions, clinics for people in the community so that they could bridge the gap between the court system, access to justice, and resources and information. And when I talk about a purpose-driven life, My very first assignment, I ran to become a civil court judge, but my very first assignment was actually in family court. And I had the honor and the opportunity to give back to other families who are in their most vulnerable state. I was able to give back to them the way that court had given to me. And now I look at how COVID-19 has affected Brooklynites. The amount of people who have passed away, and the surrogates court has become more and more important for our community. And I know that COVID-19 has struck communities of color in a great degree. And I'll say that the issues with surrogates court and the need for it stretches far and wide from one side of Brooklyn to the next. I know intimately what it is like to watch a community, a family, my mother, start from very humble beginnings and have something to pass on to me so that I might have a head start in life. And to me, that's what it means to be a surrogate court judge. You stand in the shoes of the person who passed away as their surrogate, as their voice, to ensure that their wishes, their final wishes are passed down. And we talk about the transfer of wealth from one generation to the next. In a lot of communities, the word wealth is a heavy word. But when I think about my family, when I think about my parents, when I think about my neighbors.
Oh, whoops, sorry. The judge.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, you're still muted.
Okay, thank you. When I think about the surrogates court, I know that it has a great deal to do with the transfer of and preservation of that person's legacy, all the work that they put behind so that that next generation would have a head start. So I'm asking for your support and endorsement in this race.
Sorry, thank you. I'm jumping in just there. Thank you so much. I guess I'll just go ahead and ask the question we've asked each other candidate. Did you pass through the Brooklyn Judicial Screening Panel?
Yes, I did.
That's the easy answer. Anyone else have any questions? Melinda, I see your actual hand up.
Yes. Hi, Judge Paul. So I have two questions. Hopefully you can answer them very, very quickly. The question that I asked other candidates in the age of womanhood, what does this mean for you, being one of the women who are running in this race? And secondly, using your position as surrogate court judge, it's so important that Black and brown people have an estate and legacy plan, but many of them don't. And you would be the intermediary for that as the surrogate court judge. So what would that look like specifically for you, knowing that there's so much deed theft going on in Central Brooklyn and in other parts of the borough and various other issues? A lot of people are passing away without wills. You'd be responsible for that. So I just want to know, how would you work to make that sort of more equitable in terms of race? So again, two questions: womanhood and Black and brown people and estate planning.
Okay, thank you so much for the question. So womanhood first, I will say that, today we have broken down so many barriers between gender roles. Women lead, women are mothers, they lead households, they are leading in the boardroom, they are leading in the courthouse. And so it is an extraordinary time to have an opportunity to step into that role as a woman of color and running for this position. I will say the surrogate court has been around since the 1800s. And since that time, there has been only three people of color in the state of New York to hold a position as a surrogate. And so I would take that on with great pride and honor. The second question is about what it means in particular for communities of color. I mentioned briefly about how COVID-19 has affected Brooklynites far and from each corner of Brooklyn to the next, but we know that it has affected communities of color in a disproportionate number. And so surrogate court is the place where these families, my neighbors, are coming to get resources. And even if the people don't realize that whether you have a will or not, you may end up in surrogate's court. And sometimes it's not even a family dispute. You are just trying to get access to the court so that you can get access to your mother's home, so you can look for a will, so you can find clothing, so you can bury your mother. So it is very important to me, especially for communities of color now who are flooding the gates of surrogate court. What would I do? I consider the work that I did before I became a judge, where I put together a lot of community workshops and programs. And I think it's important to leave the bench and go into the community and put together programs and workshops so that communities of color understand the value of estate planning, despite how hard the conversation of death can be.
Great, thank you so much. It looks like we got time for one more. Howard, you're muted now, but go.
I can't hear you.
You're muted, Howard.
A friend just texted me and asked me to ask this question. Will she happily issue parentage orders for same-sex couples using surrogates or donor sperm?
Will I happily, say it again?
Issue parentage orders for same-sex couples using surrogates or donor sperm.
Okay, so I can tell you about my track record. I've been in family court as an acting Supreme Court judge for 4 years. And one of the things that happens in surrogate court is adoptions and guardianship. In family court, we also do guardianships and adoptions. And there has been an issue where there are judges who take a position that same-sex couples who are married, the non-biological parent does not have a right or standing to seek an adoption. The feeling is, or some have religious beliefs where they won't sign off on an order. I believe that it is in the best interest of the child that both parents, biological or not, married or not, have an opportunity to, for the non-biological parent to adopt. I understand that there are legal rights to a parent who becomes a step parent at marriage when there's a non-biological child, but what happens to that child if the two parents separate? And so I've always signed off on those orders where there's same-sex couples and there's a non-biological parent who is seeking adoption, because I believe it's in the best interest of the child to have continuity with that non-biological parent, no matter what happens between the two adults. I intend to carry that thought process to surrogate's court.
Okay, that's great. And I agree 100% with it, but I don't think you answered my specific question.
Okay.
Which was about issuing parentage orders for same-sex couples using surrogates or donor sperm.
Oh, surrogate or donor sperm. And so the concept is that so one, it would be a case-by-case basis. I would apply the law based on what's before me. So I gave you my track record so that you can understand, although I may not be able to answer specific case by case, the principles that I would bring and the thought process. And so the thought process would be the same, that so long my priority would be the best interest of that child and preserving it. And so where entering that order would be in the best interest of the child, that's exactly what I will do. And so the answer is, in most instances, yes.
Okay, thank you. I think my friend will be satisfied.
Thank you so much, Judge Paul, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I think with that, I believe we've come to our final candidate of the evening. And I believe Steve Bronstein, IND member, has requested to make this introduction himself. Steve, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Rosemary Montalbano was running for surrogate. I'll give you a little background. Rosemary was born and raised and currently lives in Bushwick. So she has lived through all the iterations of what's going on in that neighborhood. She comes from immigrant parents from Italy, from a very, very modest background. Went to local high schools, St. John's undergrad, Western New England Law School. Upon graduation from law school, she went to work in the Queens County District Attorney's Office. She actually spent 8 years, which is a considerable amount of time in the DA's office, where she worked in the Appeals Bureau. She resolved economic crimes, and in grand jury, where you really deal with every single type of crime, particularly street violence. So she has experience throughout the office. After that, she worked for a number of different judges as their law secretary, as their court attorney, including Judge Cassara and Judge Greenbaum, who were in the civil court. So she has a lot of civil experience. And then went to work for Judge Gregory Lasak, who in Queens at that point handled probably the most serious cases in Queens, all the homicides, and presided over drug court, which is a sort of a really different kind of experience to working in the drug court and dealing with homicides. After that, she ran for civil court in Brooklyn in 2014 and was elected. And then Judge Montalbano ran in 2019 for Supreme Court, where she was elected. And now she's seeking a term of surrogates. And I will certainly discuss more about her in the closed room. Thank you.
Great, thanks. If Judge Montalbano is on, please go ahead and get started.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Congratulations, Tyler, on your new election. Congratulations to Jason, job well done last year, and to all the executive board and members. I can't begin without saying hello to Joan Millman. And we talk about women, and she is alongside Joan Simon, the pillars of your club. And that's why I'm so happy to be here and present myself. I am presently, like you heard, a Supreme Court judge, and I am seeking the surrogate seat because it is a passion of mine to serve in that court because of the work they do. I am, as stated, the child of immigrant parents. My father came to this country in his early 30s. English was not something he ever was able to grasp. His ideas were old world. English was not my first language. I went to school and learned English. But because of the struggles that we had in my family and in the community, I was the voice. I was the voice of my family, and alongside, members of our community who also didn't speak English, I was the letter reader. I was the person who went to unemployment. I went to the welfare offices. I went to fill out forms. That's what I did. That's what I love to do. I didn't know lawyers or judges. They were foreign people to me, but it gave me an opportunity to feel like I could help. And I just love that feeling. I say all the time, I am the child who, when you say it takes a village, I'm that child because I depended on the people around me and the people who encouraged me. Teachers changed my life. We had hard times. My family home went into foreclosure. And, I say all the time, it was the worst of experiences and the best of experiences because I was able to learn so much by that terrible experience. For those who know about deed theft, which is now running rampant in Brooklyn, I say all the time, luckily, my parents' foreclosure and being victims of predatory lenders was in the late 80s. In 95 or 96, Giuliani started the TPT program. If that program was in effect when we were going through our financial woes that my father hid from everyone, the house would have absolutely been gone. There is no way. I mean, when I talk about the deed theft that's happening in our county because property that was purchased at $30,000 is now worth $2 million. And I could talk for 2 hours about that. But it all now comes to the surrogate court where people need to preserve their homes. That, again, as Judge Paul said, with generational wealth, people work hard to hold on to things. I understand the need for people to be educated in that area. In 2006, I also was asked to be an administrator of an estate. It was a gentleman in the neighborhood that everyone thought had nothing because he walked around with holes in his pants. And, they said, oh, he might own a building or two. And it ended up to be an $8 million estate. I mean, he had no family except for siblings who he didn't even speak to. What I learned and had to navigate in that experience was such an eye-opener. It was one, I take one Pandora's box after another, and navigating the court. I mean, unfortunately, for whatever reason, Brooklyn surrogate court is so backlogged. And, and I say pre-COVID, it's backlogged. And I have spent months speaking to attorneys and speaking to people in the community about, like, what do you see? What are your frustrations? What needs to be changed? And, I'm constantly hearing that there are piles and piles of papers and people are waiting for years to be heard and they don't know what to do. Many of the people who show up there are not, they're self-represented. When I was in civil court, I dealt with so many, as a law secretary and as a judge, so many self-represented people. Those people need to be heard. They need to be explained things. They need to have a voice. The surrogate is the gatekeeper. Many of you have read in the news recently. I'm sorry?
Oh, I was just going to jump in and encourage you to finish your thought, just we're getting to the end of the evening.
Yeah. Okay, recently there, it's been in the newspaper, and in the past, if you Google just historically, the surrogate is the gatekeeper. I think my criminal experience would allow me not to be shy in saying that. The filings and the appointments of fiduciary are astronomical. And there are certain firms and certain lawyers that are making millions of dollars. And I'm not saying that they're not doing work. Some of them are, but there has to be an accountability. Like I said, I could speak for hours, but I'll stop now.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I guess I'll just start off the question with the same one I've been asking, if whether or not you've passed through the Brooklyn Judicial Screening Panel.
I have been through the screening panel numerous times. I was screened when I was in civil court, Supreme, and now surrogate. I've been found qualified every time I appeared in front of them. I also, civil court, went before the New York City bar and legal, and were found qualified as well.
Great. Thank you so much. We have time if anyone has another question for Judge Montalbano. Melinda, I see your hand.
If no one has questions, then I'll ask. No one else has questions? I feel like Okay, Howard, we've both asked questions. Anyone else who has not asked questions? Okay, now I'll go. Hi, Judge Montalbano. So thank you for being here. My question is the same question that I asked Judge Paul regarding womanhood. What does that mean for you in terms of running for office? Again, with so many women just in general taking the stage and saying, you know what, I'm going to put myself out there. This is huge. So if you could answer that. And then my second question is surrounding surrogate court and people of color regarding issues pertaining to estate planning, deed theft, and everything in between. I don't want to say we, because that's not the case for me, but some people of color traditionally don't have that. And I want to be clear that we have someone who's on the bench who is competent, who is qualified, not saying that you're not, but who's competent and who's qualified, who can really move the needle forward in terms of that because you'll be the surrogate for people who can't make decisions for themselves, being that they're dead or that they're incapacitated, and even with adoption. So I just want to hear your thoughts on those two issues.
Thank you. I will start with the womanhood. I am beyond thrilled to be in a position. I grew up with, in a community where most women around me were not educated. They didn't have the opportunities that I have fought for. It was not a given that I would go to college. I fought to go to college. My parents owned a deli, and we worked in that deli from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. I did my homework at 9 p.m. That was the promise I made. That's what I did. The women around me taught me things and told me, they encouraged me. They were like, just go and take the opportunity. I was surrounded by women who probably, had the wherewithal to be doctors and lawyers and business people, but they did not have the opportunity. And I was blessed to have their encouragement. I also, like I said, teachers have changed my life. I've met people along the way. And this is why I mentor many young girls in many different programs. And I say all the time, treat every day of an internship, of an opportunity to meet someone like a job interview, because they will remember. And that's what happened. People remember. When I met women and I volunteered, they did remember. So that's the woman question. The second question about, when you say I lived in a community where people face that, my own family faced the likelihood of a deed theft. We had the tax bill, we had the water bill. I had to go and navigate Con Ed and Brooklyn Union because we had no heat. I remember what it's like to wake up on Thanksgiving and not have heat. And I took that with me to the civil court. And when I was in the civil court and I listened to those cases, and the first day I was there, I said, I want a meeting with Con Ed and Brooklyn Union, because no one will come in here and get their electricity or their heat shut off. We will work something out if they're here. And they knew. And, and I trained almost every civil court judge that came after me. And I told them they will agree. I got them to agree to $10 a month on thousands of dollar bills, because these people are coming, they're vulnerable, they're scared. And I am that voice to say, do you understand what you're reading? Do you understand the obligation? Because they will come back in a month or two if you don't pay what you're agreeing to. And they did not leave my courtroom until they were able to say, yes, I can pay. They were agreeing to $150, knowing they couldn't pay because they were afraid, because they felt that they had to. They left the courtroom sometimes agreeing to $25 because that's what they could do. And that's what I told them. And that's what they would do going forward, because I didn't want them to come back, because I understand the struggles. And as a surrogate, a lot of people come unrepresented. I would never allow someone to feel pressured in selling a building, feel pressured by predatory lenders who we were victims to. My father signed a $10,000 note that cost him almost the house. In the note says, you miss one payment, we buy your house for a fraction of the price. I had to go as a late teen to what I call the streets to get a loan, to a hard money loan. If anybody knows what hard money loan is, they're charging you 3 times what the bank is charging. But you know what? I didn't have a choice. I was dating my husband. I think he was making $18,000 and I was a student. And we did what we had to do. And that's why I'm in Supreme Court. I'm in the first year of a 14-year term. I could put my feet up and coast. I know how to try a case. From January to March, I did 8 jury trials. During the pandemic, was proactive with e-filing, which was not, being used as it should have. Now it is. And I was looking for files before I had a clerk. For months, I was hearing arguments. I mean, I am in this race because I know I could make a difference, because I'm passionate about the work that's done. I'm passionate about helping people and not wanting people to be taken advantage of.
All right, great. Thank you so much. I'm gonna hop in real quick. Howard, do you have a quick question?
Yeah, I'm going to ask the same question I asked Judge Paul. Will you happily issue parentage orders for same-sex couples using surrogates or donor sperm?
Oh, I think you were muted.
I'm
Judge
sorry.
Obama, you're muted.
I'm not muted. No.
No, Howard, you're fine.
I don't know if you heard my answer at all. And I said, yes, I would happily sign them. Many of them, of course, are on consent of the parties. The other thing, Howard, I don't have to tell you, I've done research in same-sex, not only marriages, but unions with children. And historically, and I don't have to tell you, raising a child is about love. And those children are as healthy and as happy as those raised by heterosexual couples. And we've all known those heterosexual couples who are not happy, and their children will tell you it had nothing to do with whether they're raised by same sex or heterosexual. It's about the love. And that's why I say yes wholeheartedly.
Great, thank you so much. I think that brings us to the end of our candidate presentations. Thanks to everyone who joined and shared their thoughts and their vision for their races. I think now it is time for, we'll start moving folks who are eligible to vote in the endorsement over into sort of a separate discussion room. I think Seamus, you can go ahead and start doing that. It's a, whoop.
Yeah, people are,
Okay,
people are already
Seamus.
getting assigned. If you're not getting assigned either, you're not a member and we'll help you with that, or you're not a member that can vote, or you're a candidate or something else. So just stick around if you think you should be voting.
Perfect. Thank you all so much for coming. It's unlikely that we will sort of come back into this room. I think once folks are done with the discussion and once they have voted, we'll sort of adjourn the meeting from there. So if you're a guest tonight, or if you're one of the candidates who's appearing before us, thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts. And we hope to see you again. And I'll stick around for a second until I can figure out how to get into the other room. But thank you so much. If I don't see you again, thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you.
Seamus tried to move me, and I accidentally shunned you, Seamus, and now I don't know how to get over there.
Hold on, I can help with that.
Okay,
Is there anyone who thinks that they should be in that is not?
Yeah, Seamus.
Here,
Andrea and I think need to be.
Devin, Melinda, Joy.
Yeah, I'm
Andrea.
gonna go, but I just want to help out with moving people.
Okay. All right, don't move Melinda, my bad. But Joy,
Okay, one second.
looks like Dara Adams is here.
Robinson, let's double check.
I see
yeah.
Karen Johnson.
Thank you so much, Seamus. Great work, man.
Hey, go ahead and move me over, Seamus, if you would. I gotta go
Yeah.
This other thing. Sorry about that.
Hold on. Is there anyone else that should be like moved over?
Sorry, I got bumped out somehow.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna have to move you to our backup room, and then I'll move you to that. So just okay.
Whatever you need. I'll join.
What room is this?
This is just the general one where so the breakout room is only for voting members.
Hey, Seamus, this is Michael Mallon. How are you? I was watching.
I'm a member, so I don't know how this is working.
Okay, sorry, who's speaking? Okay, Mal. Oh, hold on one time. So Michael Mallon. Okay, let me move you. Okay. Who else was? Someone else spoke just now.
Yeah, Carmen Pacheco. I just wanted to know how this is working. I'm a member.
Yeah, you have not. We don't have that you've voted or that you've paid dues and gone to 3 meetings, which is what you need to do for you to be able to vote. So.
So everyone must have paid their dues and have attended 3 meetings at least. over
That
the
I haven't been getting that's okay.
Yeah.
Not a problem. I'll pay my dues and try to make sure that I get information.
So what you can do is you can follow us if you have the capability on Twitter, and we're going to